Muhammad Ali didn't walk into that restaurant to be praised. He walked in quietly, bundled in a winter coat, a cap, and a scarf. Just another man escaping the Chicago cold. No cameras, no bodyguards. No one knew the owner was in the room. And for the first few minutes, everything looked perfect. The food was flying out of the kitchen. The tables were full. People were smiling. Until Ali heard something that didn't belong in a place like this. A soft cry, not loud, not dramatic. The kind of crying someone does when they're trying not to be heard, because being heard could cost them everything. Ali stopped cold, because that sound wasn't just sadness, it was fear. And when he followed it toward the back hallway, he discovered the truth about his own restaurant. A truth so ugly, so hidden, that it had been destroying one employee's life for months, right under everyone's nose. But what happened next, the moment Ali finally revealed who he was, turned the entire room silent, and exposed a man who thought he was untouchable. So, if you've ever wondered what real leadership looks like when nobody's watching, stay with me. Because what Muhammad Ali did that night wasn't a boxing match. It was a fight for someone who couldn't fight back. He almost didn't hear it at first. Not because the sound wasn't there, but because the restaurant was loud enough to bury it. Plates clinked, chairs scraped, people laughed, soul music floated through the warm air like it belonged there. The smell of fried catfish, sweet cornbread, and seasoned greens wrapped around the room like a blanket. And yet, under all that comfort, there was a crack in the wall, a soft, broken sound, the kind of sound that doesn't belong in a place built to feed families. Someone was crying, quietly, like they didn't want anyone to know. Muhammad Ali stopped mid-step. His body didn't freeze because he was scared. He froze because he recognized something, not the voice, the feeling, that helpless kind of pain. He'd heard it before, years ago, in locker rooms and back halls, not from losing fights, but from people being trapped, cornered, controlled. And the worst part? This time, it was happening inside his business. Now, before we go deeper, let me say this clearly. Some people call this story a local legend. Some say it happened exactly like this. Others say parts of it have been retold over the years. But no matter how you heard it, the message hits the same. Because what happened that night is what happens in real workplaces everywhere. And the reason this story spread like fire across Chicago? Because it wasn't about boxing. It was about what a real champion does when nobody's watching. 2 years after stepping away from the ring, Ali wasn't looking for applause. He wasn't chasing cameras. He had already done that. Instead, he poured his energy into something quieter, something real, a restaurant. Not a flashy celebrity spot with gold signs and fancy pricing. This place was built for the neighborhood, built for working folks, built for families who wanted a full meal without being treated like they didn't belong. It was called Champion's Table, a soul food spot with warm lights, affordable plates, and a menu that felt like somebody's grandma had stepped into the kitchen. And Ali wasn't the type to slap his name on a building and vanish. He didn't treat it like a trophy. He treated it like a responsibility. He hired local. He listened to the cooks. He cared about the vibe, the staff, the community. Because Ali believed something simple. A business isn't just what you sell. It's how you treat people while you sell it. Every few weeks, Ali would do something most owners never do. He'd show up, not as Muhammad Ali, not as the famous face people screamed for, but as a regular man, a winter coat, a baseball cap, a scarf wrapped high enough to hide most of his face. He'd walk in like any other customer, sit down, and watch. Not to spy, to understand. Because Ali knew something most people learn too late. The truth of a place is not found in the front room. It's found in the back, in the way workers talk when they think nobody important is listening, in the eyes of employees clocking out after midnight, in the way people flinch when a certain name gets said. That's what he was looking for. Not praise, not compliments. Truth. That night, Champion's Table was packed. Dinner rush. Every booth taken. Servers moving fast, balancing trays like tightrope walkers. Families leaned over plates. Couples shared laughs. A group of older men debated sports at the far end, waving cornbread like they were making a point in court. Everything looked right, but Ali had spent his entire life reading rooms. In boxing, you learn quickly, People can smile while they're planning to hurt you. And as he scanned the floor, Ali felt it, a tension that didn't match the warm lighting, a stiffness in the air, like the room was trying to hold its breath. He didn't know why yet, but he felt it in his gut. And then he saw him, the manager, standing near the hostess, stationed like a guard, tall, rigid, black suit, hair perfect, posture sharp. He wasn't just watching the restaurant like a manager, he was watching it like a man who wanted people to fear him. Ali kept walking slowly, letting his eyes do the work. Servers moved around that manager differently, not naturally, not relaxed, more like they were trying not to trigger him. One girl passed near him and lowered her head instantly. A young man at the server station tightened up when the manager looked his way. Ali didn't need words yet. Body language told the story. That manager had control, and he enjoyed it. Ali slid into a booth near the hallway leading toward the kitchen, not because he wanted a better seat, because he wanted a better view. And that's when he heard it again. Soft, muffled, coming from behind a door that was slightly open. A break room, someone crying quietly, like they were trying to swallow their pain before it spilled out. Ali's eyes narrowed, his shoulders squared. He leaned till toward the sound, staying calm, staying invisible. Through the crack of the door he caught a glimpse. A young black woman, early 20s maybe, head bowed, hands gripping the edge of a metal counter like it was the only thing keeping her upright. She wasn't having a bad shift. This wasn't normal frustration. This was fear. Another employee stood beside her, whispering fast, urgent, protective. The girl's shoulders shook. Ali watched her for just 2 seconds longer. And in those 2 seconds, his stomach dropped, because that look on her face, that was the look of someone who had been carrying something for too long, something heavy, something that wasn't her fault. Ali's first instinct was simple. Stand up, walk in, ask what's wrong, fix it immediately. But he didn't, not yet, because he understood something. If someone is crying like that at work, they're not going to tell the truth the moment a stranger walks in. Especially not if the person hurtin' them has power. And that manager out front, he didn't look like a man who was strict. He looked like a man who punished people for talking. So Ali did what champions do. He stayed patient. He stayed sharp. He gathered information. He waited. A server came to his booth. "Can I start you with something to drink, sir?" Ali kept his voice low, muffled behind the scarf. "Sweet tea, please." The server smiled, nodded, and walked away. Ali barely noticed. His attention stayed on the hallway, the break room, the energy, the manager, and then the young man from the break room stepped back onto the floor, jaw tight, hands fidgeting, eyes darting like someone checking for danger. He moved toward the server station, and Ali realized something. That young man wanted to help her, but he was scared. That meant the problem wasn't a customer. It wasn't a rude table. It wasn't a bad tip. This was something deeper, and Ali knew it. Ali stood up casually, not rushed, no. Angry, just controlled. He walked toward the server station like a normal customer who needed something. The young man was sorting silverware, trying to look busy. Ali approached and spoke gently. "Excuse me, could I get a few extra napkins?" The young man looked up, startled. "Oh, yeah, yes, sir, of course." He grabbed napkins fast and handed them over. Ali took them, but didn't walk away. He glanced at the name tag. "Thank you. Derek." Derek blinked, surprised Ali used his name. No problem." Ali's eyes stayed calm, kind, but direct. "I couldn't help noticing your coworker in the back. She seems upset." Derek stiffened instantly, like the words themselves were dangerous. "She's fine," Derek said too fast. Ali didn't push harder. He didn't accuse. He just said the truth quietly. "She doesn't look fine." Derek swallowed. His eyes flicked, just for a split second, toward the manager near the front. And that was all Ali needed to see. Fear, not of customers. Not of the job. Fear of him. Derek lowered his voice. "Sir, I shouldn't talk about it." Ali's tone softened, like a father speaking to someone's son. "I'm not trying to get you in trouble. Derek's jaw tightened. That broke something open. He exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for weeks. She's not okay, he whispered. Ali leaned slightly closer. Is it a customer issue? Derek shook his head quickly. No, that single word carried everything. Ali nodded slowly, then asked something simple. How long has she worked here? Derek answered automatically. About 8 months. Then he snapped back like he'd said too much. Why? Ali kept it calm. Because she looks like someone who can't afford to lose her job. Derek gave a short, bitter laugh. She can't. Ali's eyes hardened behind the scarf. Why not? Derek swallowed again. She's a single mom. Ali didn't react. He didn't show the anger rising in his chest. But inside, something clicked into place like a lock. Because predators don't pick strong targets. They pick people who can't leave. And now Ali was almost certain someone in this building had been using that truth against her. Before Ali could ask anything else, the whole temperature shifted. That heavy feeling returned, like the room tensed up. Ali didn't even have to turn around. He knew. The manager was walking toward them, slow, confident, like he owned the air. A voice slid in, smooth, polite, and cold. Everything all right over here? Derek's head dropped instantly. Yes, sir. Ali turned calmly. The manager was close now, early 40s, suit too expensive for a soul food place. Smile sharp, not warm. The kind of smile that looks friendly until you realize it never reaches the eyes. His name tag read, Robert Chambers. He looked at Ali's covered face, trying to figure him out. Ali kept his voice soft. Just needed napkins. Chambers nodded. Good. We pride ourselves on service. Then he placed a hand on Derek's shoulder. Not friendly, not supportive. Too firm. A grip. A reminder. Let's stay focused on work, Derek. Derek nodded fast. Yes, sir. Ali watched the whole thing. And in that moment, he wasn't just suspicious anymore. He was sure. Something dark was living inside his restaurant. And it was wearing a manager's suit. Ali thanked Derek quietly and walked back toward his booth. Chambers' eyes followed him. Ali could feel them on his back like a spotlight. And as Ali sat down, one thought repeated in his mind like a drum. If this is what's happening in front of customers, what's happening when the doors lock? He stared toward the hallway again. The break room, the girl, the fear. And he made a decision, not as a celebrity, not as a fighter, but as a man with responsibility. He wasn't leaving that building until he knew the truth, because if someone was being broken inside his restaurant, then the real fight wasn't in the ring anymore. It was right here, and it had been happening for months. Ali didn't touch the menu. He didn't even pretend to read it. He just sat there in that booth, listening to the restaurant like it was a living thing. The laughter at the tables felt a little too forced now. The music sounded a little quieter. Even the plates hitting the counter had a sharper edge to them. And every time Robert Chambers moved, the staff moved differently, like a school of fish avoiding a shark. Ali watched the way servers straightened, their backs when Chambers passed, the way they avoided eye contact, the way their smiles looked practiced instead of real. It reminded him of something he hated, not boxing, not rivalry, but control. In the ring, men fought because they chose to. Here, these employees weren't choosing anything. They were surviving. Ali took one slow breath, then stood up. He walked toward the front like he was heading to the restroom, then shifted slightly and pushed through the side door that led to the back alley. The cold hit him like a slap. Chicago didn't play games in March. The wind whipped down the alleyway and tugged at his coat like it wanted to drag him back into the night. Ali pulled his scarf tighter around his face and stepped beside the brick wall, pretending to check his phone. But he wasn't calling anyone yet. Not until he had proof. Not until he knew exactly what kind of monster Robert Chambers was. Because if Ali did this wrong, if he marched in accusing the manager without enough, Chambers would spin it. He'd deny it. He'd punish the staff later, and the people who were already scared would become terrified. Ali wasn't going to throw a punch in the dark. He was going to see the target clearly first. That's when the back door opened again. A woman stepped outside slowly, like her body was moving but her spirit was tired. Late 20s maybe, champion's table uniform, hair pulled back, face worn down like she'd been doing double shifts for too long. She leaned against the wall and pulled out a cigarette with hands that shook just a little. Not from the cold, from exhaustion. Ali didn't rush her. He didn't crowd her. He just took 2 steps closer, keeping his body language calm, not threatening. "Long night?" he asked. She glanced up, eyes narrowing at first, because in a back alley at night, you don't trust anybody. But Ali's tone wasn't creepy. It wasn't aggressive. It was human. She exhaled slowly. "Friday nights always are." Ali nodded like he understood. "I'm new around here," he said, half-truth smooth on his tongue. "Place is good. Food smells amazing." That got a small flicker of pride out of her, just for a second. "Yeah, it is," she said. Then her gaze dropped again, like she remembered she didn't have permission to enjoy anything for too long. Ali let a beat pass. Then he asked gently, "Mind if I ask you something?" She hesitated, cigarette hovering near her lips. "Depends what it is." Ali didn't smile. He didn't joke. He went straight to the point. "Your manager, Robert Chambers. What's he like to work for?" The woman's whole face changed. Not dramatically, but enough. A shadow crossed her eyes. Her jaw tightened. She looked away from Ali and scanned the alley, as if the walls themselves might repeat her words. Then she said carefully, "He's strict." Ali waited. "Strict how?" he asked. She took a drag and let it out slow. "Like..." She paused, struggling to find the safest words. "Like he expects things done his way." Ali nodded. Like he wasn't surprised, but he was watching her closely now. "And is that all?" he asked. Her eyes flicked to him. "You asking for a reason?" Ali's voice stayed low. "I heard someone crying inside. That didn't sound like a bad day, that sounded like somebody being crushed." The woman's lips parted slightly. For a moment, Ali thought she might shut down completely. But then she did something else. She laughed. Once, short and bitter, like somebody who'd been waiting for someone to notice. "Yeah," she said softly. "You heard Kesha." Ali felt the name land in his chest. So the girl had a name. She was real, not just the crying server. "Kesha." The woman shook her head and stared at the cigarette like it might answer the questions she was afraid to say out loud. Ali kept his voice calm. "What's happening to her?" The woman's eyes shimmered with anger. Not at Ali, at the situation. "At him," she said. "Chambers." Ali didn't move. He didn't interrupt. He let her choose her words. "He makes her stay late," she continued, quieter now, like late. "After everyone leaves." Ali's body went still. "How often?" he asked. The woman swallowed. "Once a week. Sometimes more. Always when it's slow. Always when he can say it's policy." Ali's hands curled into fists inside his coat pockets. "And he makes only her stay?" he asked. The woman nodded quickly. "Only her." Ali's voice, doctor, opt lower. "Why?" The woman looked up at him with tired eyes. "Because she's got a kid. A little boy. 6 years old." Ali's stomach tightened. The same detail Derek had said. So it wasn't gossip. It was a pattern. The woman continued. "She needs this job. She's always talking about rent, daycare, school stuff. Chambers knows that. He knows she can't just walk away." Ali could hear his heartbeat in his ears now. Not from fear, from anger. A cold kind of anger. The kind that doesn't explode. The kind that focuses. "And what does he do when she stays late?" Ali asked. The woman hesitated. She looked toward the door again, like she expected it to open any second. Then she whispered, "He talks to her like she belongs to him." Ali's eyes sharpened. "What does that mean?" he asked. "It means..." She swallowed again. "He leans close. He makes her uncomfortable. He says things. He threatens her job without saying it directly, like, 'It'd be a shame if your hours got cut,' or, 'We can always find someone else.'" Ali's jaw clenched so hard it hurt. "And she's scared," Ali said. "Not a question." The woman nodded. "We've all seen her after. She comes out looking like she's been through a storm, quiet, shaking, like she's trying to hold herself together." Ali stared into the night for a second, letting the truth settle. Then he asked, "Has anyone reported him?" The woman let out a sad breath. "To who?" she said. "He runs the place. And the owners don't come around like that. Most owners don't care, they just want the money." She said it like a fact, like she had stopped believing anyone with power would ever help. Ali's chest tightened, because the owners did come around, just not in the way they expected. Ali gave a slow nod. Then he said something the woman didn't understand yet. "That ends tonight." Her eyebrows lifted. "What?" Ali didn't explain. Not yet, because explaining too early gives the enemy time to prepare. He stepped toward the back door, then stopped and looked at her again. "What's your name?" he asked. She hesitated, then answered quietly, "Tanya." Ali nodded. "Tanya. Thank you." Tanya blinked, confused by his seriousness. Ali pushed the door open and stepped back into the warmth of the restaurant. And the moment he did, he felt it again. That tension, that quiet fear. Chambers was still inside, still moving like the place belonged to him. Ali's eyes locked on him from across the room. Robert Chambers turned his head slightly, like he sensed it, and for just a second their gazes met. Chambers didn't recognize him. Not yet, but Ali recognized something in Chambers' eyes, arrogance, the confidence of a man who thought he was untouchable. Ali breathed in slowly. Then he made a promise to himself, not whispered, not dramatic, just certain. "By the time this night ends, you will never control anyone in this building again." And as Ali started walking deeper into the restaurant, toward the hallway, toward the break room, toward Kesha, the real fight was about to begin. Ali didn't slow his steps. He didn't hesitate. He walked through Champion's table with purpose now, not like a customer, not like a guest, but like a man who finally knew the truth. The restaurant was quieter than before. The dinner rush had thinned out, fewer customers, fewer eyes, which meant fewer witnesses. Robert Chambers stood near the service station, arms crossed, scanning the room like a man guarding territory. When he saw Ali moving with intent toward the back, something in his expression shifted. Suspicion. Ali felt it, but he didn't stop. He turned the corner into the hallway leading toward the break room, and there she was, Kesha, wiping down tables alone. Her movements were mechanical, like her body was working while her mind was somewhere far away. Her eyes looked hollow, not tired, drained. Ali approached slowly so he wouldn't startle her. "Excuse me," he said gently. "May I speak with you for a moment?" Kesha flinched. She looked up fast, fear flashing across her face. I'm working, sir," she said quickly. "If you need something, I can get another server." Ali shook his head slightly. "No, I don't need another server." She froze. Ali lowered his voice. "I know what's been happening." Kesha's breath caught. "I don't know what you mean," she said, but her hands were already trembling. Ali spoke carefully, every word chosen with care. "Mr. Chambers, the late shifts, being kept alone, the way he talks to you, the pressure." Her shoulders caved in like the weight was finally too much. Tears filled her eyes instantly. "I can't," she whispered. "Please, if I say anything, I'll lose my job. I have a son. I can't afford—" "You won't lose anything," Ali interrupted softly. She looked at him, disbelief written all over her face. "He will." Before she could respond, a shadow fell across the hallway. The air went cold. Robert Chambers' voice slid in smooth and sharp. "Is there a problem here?" Kesha stiffened like a child caught doing something wrong. Her breathing became shallow. Her body recoiled without her even realizing it. Ali noticed everything. He didn't turn right away. He watched Kesha's reaction instead, and that reaction told him more than any confession ever could. Ali turned slowly. Chambers stood there, face calm, smile tight, but his eyes burned with warning. "Kesha is on the clock," Chambers said. "If you need assistance, I can help you." Ali looked at him calmly. "Actually," he said, "there is a problem." Chambers' smile twitched. Kesha's hands shook harder. Ali reached up and slowly pulled the scarf down from his face. Then he removed his baseball cap. The restaurant seemed to stop breathing. A server froze mid-step. Someone at a nearby table gasped. Derek stared from across the room, eyes wide. Kesha's hands flew to her mouth. Chambers' face drained of color. "My name," Ali said quietly, his voice steady but powerful, "is Muhammad Ali." The silence was heavy, crushing. "I own this restaurant," he continued, "and you and I are going to have a conversation right now." For the first time all night, Robert Chambers looked afraid. "Mr. Ali, I had no idea." "No," Ali said calmly, "you didn't, and that's exactly the point." He turned to Kesha, his expression softening completely. You're safe now, he said. I promise. Kesha broke down. Tears streamed down her face as months of fear poured out in silent sobs. Ali turned back to Chambers. Your office, he said. Chambers swallowed hard and nodded. Inside the office, the door closed behind them. Chambers tried to laugh. This is quite a misunderstanding, he said nervously. If I'd known you were here, things would look very different. Ali's eyes were calm. Dangerous. That's exactly why I was here, he said. To see who you are when you think no one important is watching. Chambers. Hands trembled. I don't know what she told you. This isn't about what she told me, Ali interrupted. This is about what I saw, what I heard, what your employees confirmed. He stepped closer. You used your position to intimidate. You isolated her. You used her child as leverage. You created fear. Chambers shook his head. I never meant... Save it, Ali said quietly. His voice never rose, but it didn't need to. I grew up poor, Ali continued. I know what it looks like when someone with power takes advantage of someone who has none, and I will not tolerate it. Ali pulled out his phone. I'm calling my business partner, he said. Right now. Chambers panicked. Please, he said. I have a family. I need this job. Ali looked at him coldly. Kesha has a family too, a 6-year-old son. But that didn't stop you. He made the call. This is Muhammad, he said. I need you at Champion's table immediately. We're terminating a manager tonight. Chambers collapsed into the chair. When Ali returned to the dining room, every eye was on him. Kesha stood near Derek and the other employees, trembling. Ali walked straight to her. He's gone, he said.